Imagine it's January, the shops are closed, supply chains are faltering, your fridge is empty, but you walk into your garden, open an earth pit, and pull out fresh, crisp cabbage as if you had harvested it yesterday. While others are desperately searching for vegetables, you have supplies for months. This isn't a fantasy. This is ancient knowledge that our grandparents mastered and that is almost forgotten today. In the next few minutes, I'll show you a method as old as agriculture itself, but so powerful that it will change your entire approach to food security. Before we begin, I want to ask you something. If you're truly ready to build real independence, subscribe to this channel now. Not for me, but for yourself, because every video here is another building block toward your self-sufficiency. Leave a like so others can find this knowledge too, and stay tuned until the end, because that's where everything comes together. That's where you'll understand why this method doesn't just store cabbage, it can change your life. We live in a time of unprecedented dependency. Our great-grandparents wouldn't have understood us. For them, it was a given that months lay between harvest and consumption. They had no supermarkets, no cold chains, no global logistics, and yet they survived winters harsher than anything we can imagine today. They had something we've lost. Knowledge. The knowledge of how to work with the earth instead of against it, how to use natural processes instead of artificial systems. Storing cabbage underground is more than a preservation technique. It's an act of rebellion against a system that wants us to believe we need it to survive. The history of earth storage goes back thousands of years. In Russia, they called them earth pits. In Germany, Erdmieten. In Scandinavia, earth cellars. Wherever people had to survive winters, they developed this method. And it works just as well today as it did 1,000 years ago. Maybe even better, because we can add some modern insights into microclimates and plant physiology. But the core remains the same. The earth itself becomes the refrigerator, the protection, the vault for your food. Let's talk about the first fundamental principle without which nothing works. Selecting the right cabbage. Not every cabbage is suitable for long-term underground storage. You need to understand this from the start. Early varieties that you harvest in summer are designed to grow quickly and be eaten fresh. Their leaves are tender, their water content high, their structure loose. If you try to store these varieties, you'll have mushy, rotting heads within a few weeks. What you need are late storage varieties. These varieties have been bred over generations to last for months. Their leaves are firmer, more densely packed. Their sugar content is higher, acting as a natural antifreeze. Their outer leaves have a waxy coating, a natural protection against moisture and disease. Look for varieties like Brunswick, Winter King, Amager, or Filderkraut. These names aren't old and traditional by accident. They have survived centuries because they work. When buying seeds or choosing seedlings, look for terms like storage cabbage or late variety. The maturation time should be at least 130 to 180 days. This means you harvest them late in the year, often only after the first frost, and that is crucial. Stay with me here, because this point is overlooked by most people. The first frost isn't an enemy of storage cabbage, it's an ally. When cabbage is slightly exposed to frost, a biochemical process begins. The plant converts starch into sugar to protect the cells from freezing damage. This makes the cabbage not only sweeter and tastier, but also more durable. A head of cabbage that hasn't experienced frost is more prone to decay in storage. So don't harvest too early. Wait until nighttime temperatures drop below freezing. But harvest before a heavy frost comes that freezes the cabbage all the way through. A light frost of 2 to 4 degrees Celsius overnight is ideal. The next morning, when the heads have thawed again, is the perfect time. Care is required during the harvest itself. Cut the head of cabbage with a clean, sharp knife. Leave a stalk of about 10 to 15 centimeters on the head. This stalk is important. It's like an anchor that holds the head together and forms a barrier against invading rot bacteria. Do not damage the outer leaves. Every wound is an entry point for disease. Only remove leaves that are already damaged or rotten. The outer green leaves, about 10 of them, are a protective layer. They might get a bit unsightly during storage, but they keep the inner head fresh and crisp. After harvesting comes a step that many skip and then fail: preparation. You can't put the cabbage directly from the garden bed into the ground. It needs time to dry off. Moisture on the surface means mold and rot underground. Lay the heads out in a dry, airy place. Not in the sun, but not in the rain either. A covered area where air can circulate is perfect. 2 to 3 days is usually enough. The surface should be dry, but the head must not dry out or wither. This is a fine line, but with a bit of observation, you'll learn to recognize the right moment. While the cabbage dries, sort it out. This is hard but necessary. Any head with cracks, soft spots, pest damage, or signs of disease must be sorted out. Use these heads first or process them into sauerkraut. They won't survive storage and could infect other heads. One rotten head in your pit can ruin a dozen others. So be strict in your selection. Only the best, firmest, most flawless heads go into long-term storage. Now we come to the second major principle, the choice and preparation of the location. This is where it's decided whether your storage will be a success or a disappointment. The storage pit or earth pit isn't just some random hole in the ground. It's a precisely constructed microclimate system. The location must meet several criteria. First, good drainage. Water is the enemy of earth storage. Choose a spot where water drains naturally, never a low point where water collects. A slight slope is ideal. Test the soil during heavy rain. If water stands there, even temporarily, it's the wrong place. Second, soil quality. Heavy clay soils hold moisture and become rock hard in frost. Pure sand dries out too much and insulates poorly. What you need is a loamy sand or sandy loam, a mixture that regulates moisture without storing it, that insulates without suffocating. If your soil isn't ideal, you can improve it. Dig the pit, remove the worst soil, and replace it with a mixture of sand, garden soil, and well-rotted compost. It increases the effort, but it's worth it. Third, protection from extreme conditions. The storage pit should be protected from the wind, but not under trees where roots interfere and leaves mess up the microclimate. A spot against a south-facing wall, a hedge, or a fence can provide extra protection. But watch out for too much sun in winter. On sunny days, frozen ground can thaw and refreeze, causing temperature shocks. The size and shape of the pit depend on the amount of your harvest. A classic storage pit for cabbage is about 1/2 meter deep, 1 meter wide, and as long as necessary. Some prefer deeper pits in very cold regions, but deeper than 80 cm becomes problematic because removal becomes difficult and the risk of waterlogging increases. The shape should be slightly conical, narrower at the bottom than the top, so that moisture doesn't run down the sides and collect at the bottom. When digging the pit, set the excavated soil aside. You'll need it. Dig carefully. Remove stones, roots, and anything that could damage the cabbage. The bottom of the pit should be level. Now comes a trick few people know. Lay down a drainage layer, take coarse gravel or small stones, and cover the bottom of the pit with a 5 to 10 centimeter layer. On top of that, place a layer of dry straw or leaves. This combination ensures that excess moisture can drain downward without the cabbage sitting directly in water. Very few people remember this, but it's the difference between good and great storage. Now, the third principle that determines success or failure, the correct layering and arrangement of the cabbage in the pit. Here it becomes clear whether you've understood the system or are just bearing vegetables. Every cabbage head needs room to breathe, but also protection from cold and drying out. This is a balancing act that you master with the right technique. Start with the bottom layer. On the drainage layer with straw, place another thicker layer of dry, clean straw, 10 to 15 cm. The straw should not be damp or moldy. It is an insulating material and at the same time allows for air circulation. On this straw bed, you now place the first cabbage heads, but don't just throw them in. Place them with the stalk facing down, close together but without touching. There should be a gap of about 5 centimeters between each head. This gap is filled with straw. Why is this so important? Because if one head starts to rot, you want the rot not to spread immediately to the neighboring heads. The straw acts as a barrier and absorbs moisture. Some experts recommend storing the heads with the stalk facing up so that any moisture runs away from the heart of the cabbage. Others say stalk down so that the weight compresses the head and makes it denser. In my experience and the knowledge of old self-sufficiency experts, stalk down is more reliable, but you can test both methods and see what works better in your specific climate. The most important thing is consistency. Don't do one row one way and another row differently. Otherwise, you won't be able to track what worked later. When the first layer of cabbage is complete, cover it with another layer of straw. Again, 10 to 15 centimeter. On this, you can place a second layer of cabbage heads, again with straw in between. Most storage pits have 1 to 2 layers of cabbage. More becomes impractical because the lower heads are hard to reach, and the weight of the upper layers can damage the lower heads. If you have a lot of cabbage, it's better to create several smaller pits than one huge one. Once all the heads are stored, the final cover is applied. This is critical. This covering must fulfill several functions: insulation against cold, protection against rain and snow, but at the same time, it must breathe. A common mistake is covering the pit with plastic. That's a disaster. Plastic doesn't allow moisture to escape. Condensation forms, mold develops, and your cabbage rots. Forget plastic, work with natural materials. The traditional method is a thick layer of straw, at least 30 to 40 centimeter, followed by a layer of earth. You take the excavated soil you set aside and mound it over the straw. 20 to 30 centimeter of earth is enough. The earth acts as weight to hold the straw in place and provides additional insulation. At the sides, you let the straw stick out a bit. This allows for minimal air circulation and moisture release. Some cover the entire pit afterward with spruce branches or old straw mats to provide additional wind protection. In extremely cold regions, you can reinforce the earth layer during the winter if temperatures drop below 10 degrees. Here's something crucial that you must understand now. The storage pit is a living system. It breathes. Temperature and humidity fluctuate slightly, but within a narrow band. The ideal climate in the pit is 0 to 4 degrees Celsius and a humidity of 85 to 95%. You don't have to maintain these values exactly. Nature usually regulates this itself, but you must avoid extremes. Too warm and the cabbage begins to sprout or rot. Too cold and it freezes through. Too dry and it shrinks. Too wet and mold grows. The fourth principle is monitoring and care during storage. Many people think they can bury the cabbage and forget about it until spring. That's a mistake. The storage pit needs attention. Not much, but regularly. Once a month, you should check the pit. Don't remove the entire cover. That would destroy the microclimate. But carefully lift the straw at one corner and reach inside. Is it dry or damp? Does the temperature feel cool, or are there warm spots? Warm spots are a warning signal. They mean that rot is occurring somewhere, generating heat. Then you must act. Carefully remove the cover at that spot. Take the cabbage heads out and inspect them. Often you'll find 1 or 2 rotting heads. Remove them immediately. Check the neighboring heads. If they are firm and healthy, put them back with fresh straw in between. If they show signs of decay, take them with you and use them immediately. Moisture is a double-edged sword. Too little is rarely a problem, as the earth and straw usually hold enough moisture. But in particularly dry winters, or if the pit is too well ventilated, drying out can occur. The heads then feel light and the outer leaves become papery. If that happens, you can carefully add some moisture. Not by pouring water directly onto the cabbage, but by slightly moistening the straw at the edges. The moisture then distributes through osmosis and condensation in the system. Too much moisture is more common and more dangerous. It often results from intruding rainwater or melting snow. After every heavy rain, make sure that no surface water is flowing into the pit. If you see puddles forming around the pit, dig small drainage trenches. If the straw in the pit gets too wet, you must replace it. It's work, but necessary. Wet straw is a breeding ground for mold and bacteria. Another aspect of care is protection against pests. Mice love cabbage pits. They are warm, full of food, and provide shelter. To keep mice away, you can create a trench around the pit with sharp-edged gravel. Mice don't like that on their paws. Some self-sufficiency experts lay fine mesh wire on the bottom of the pit and up the sides before adding the straw and cabbage. This is extra effort, but if you live in an area with many rodents, it's worth considering. Don't forget, protection is also needed at the top. A layer of chicken wire under the final earth cover can help. Let's now dive deeper into specific climatic adjustments, because not every region is the same. If you live in a mild zone where winter temperatures rarely fall below 5 degrees, you need less insulation. A shallower pit with less straw may suffice. Your bigger problem will be the heat. On warm winter days, the cabbage may sprout too early. Make sure the pit is in a cooler, shadier spot, perhaps on the north side of a structure. In colder zones where temperatures regularly drop below 15 degrees, you must insulate more aggressively. Deeper pits are an advantage here because the geothermal heat rises from the depth. 60 to 80 centimeter depth is optimal. The straw layers should be thicker, maybe 50 centimeters over the cabbage. Some add an extra layer of old leaves between the straw and the earth. Leaves pack more densely than straw and add another layer of insulation. In extreme regions where the ground freezes meters deep, you can also use snow as insulation. Snow is an excellent insulator. If a thick layer of snow covers a pit, leave it there. Only add more cover if the snow melts. In regions with very wet winters, lots of rain and little frost, moisture is your main enemy. Here, the mound pit becomes the preferred method. Build it as high as possible above the ground, at least 40 centimeters. Drainage is critical. Dig a trench around the mound pit to drain the water away. The straw in wet zones should be particularly dry and of high quality. Check more frequently, at least every 2 weeks. Mold develops faster in damp conditions. In windy areas, the covering is the challenge. Wind can blow away straw and erode soil. Here, additional weights are necessary. Place heavy stones or wooden planks on the earth cover. Some build a simple wooden frame over the pit and attach old sacks or tarps weighted with earth. This protects against wind, but makes sure that air circulation is still possible. The fifth principle concerns the various methods and adaptations. The classic storage pit is not the only option. There are variations that may work better under different circumstances. Let me introduce some to you so you can choose the method that fits your situation. The mound pit is a variation that makes sense, especially with poor drainage. Instead of digging a pit, you build the storage above ground. You place a thick layer of straw on the ground, stack the cabbage on it, as in the pit method, and cover everything with a thick layer of straw and earth. The result looks like a small mound in the garden. The advantage is that water drains naturally and never enters the interior. The disadvantage is that insulation is poor because no surrounding earth stores heat. So you need a thicker straw layer, at least 50 centimeters, and possibly additional covering during extreme cold. The barrel cellar method is ideal for small quantities or if you have little space. You bury a barrel or a large drum about halfway into the earth. Drill holes in the bottom of the barrel for drainage. Fill the bottom with gravel and straw. Place the cabbage in layers with straw in between and cover the barrel with a lid on which you mound straw and earth. The advantage is easy removal. You just remove the lid and take what you need. The barrel also protects well against rodents. The sand method is an old technique that some consider superior. Instead of straw, you use sand as an insulation and moisture regulation material. You place the cabbage in layers and fill the gaps completely with dry, clean sand. Sand is excellent at creating a constant microclimate. It absorbs excess moisture and releases it slowly. The disadvantage is the weight and the work. Sand is heavy, and if you want to remove the cabbage, you have to dig. But the durability is often better than with straw. A modern adaptation that some self-sufficiency experts use is the combination of an earth pit and a raised bed. They build a special raised bed with double walls and insulation, partially bury it in the ground, and use it as a storage pit in winter. The advantage is that it's more permanent and structured, and removal is easier. You can install flaps or doors. The disadvantage is the higher initial effort and costs. Whichever method you choose, the basic principle remains the same. Constant cooling temperature, high but not extreme humidity, protection from frost, drainage against waterlogging, and ventilation against mold. If you keep these 5 factors in balance, your cabbage will last for months. Now we come to the sixth principle, which is often overlooked but crucial for long-term success: the removal and use of stored cabbage. How you take the cabbage out of the pit affects both the quality of the removed cabbage and the shelf life of the remaining supply. The golden rule is, open the pit as rarely as possible and as briefly as necessary. Every opening disturbs the microclimate. Warm air enters, moisture escapes, temperature shocks occur. So plan your removals. Don't take one head for today and another tomorrow. Take enough for a week or two. When you open the pit, work quickly but carefully. Remove only as much cover as necessary to get to the desired amount of cabbage. If possible, remove from the side or corner, not from the center. This preserves the structure and insulation of the rest. Before you take out a head of cabbage, inspect it, feel it. Is it firm? Do the outer leaves have mold or soft spots? A healthy, stored head of cabbage feels firm, though perhaps not quite as tight as when freshly harvested. The outer leaves may be wilted or discolored. That's normal. They have fulfilled their task of protecting the interior. If you find a damaged or rotting head, take it with you, even if you hadn't planned to. Use it first. A bad head endangers the others. After removal, cover the opening again immediately. Straw back, earth back, everything just as before. The faster you restore the balance, the better. When processing the removed cabbage, remove the outer leaves until you get to the fresh, firm inner leaves. Often you have to remove 2 to 3 layers. This is not a loss, it's by design. These outer leaves have protected the interior. You can compost them or use them as mulch. The interior should be fresh, crisp, and perfectly usable. The taste is often even better than with freshly harvested cabbage because the sugar conversion from the cold has refined the flavor. A tip for the kitchen. Cabbage from earth storage is excellent for all traditional cabbage dishes. Cabbage rolls, cabbage soup, sauerkraut, braised cabbage. The long storage has concentrated the aromas, and because you're taking it out of the ground, in the depths of winter when little else fresh green is available, it tastes like a gift. Toward the end of winter, usually in March or April, you should completely clear the pit, even if there is still cabbage left. Temperatures rise, the microclimate becomes unstable, and the cabbage begins to sprout or rot. Take out the remaining cabbage, process it into sauerkraut or other preserved forms, or use it fresh. Clear the pit completely, dispose of old straw. Disinfect the pit, if possible, with lime or by sun exposure, and prepare the spot for the next season. Let's talk now about the seventh and perhaps deepest principle, the philosophy behind earth storage. Why do we really do this? It's not just about cabbage. It's about something fundamental, about control over your food supply, about independence from systems that are fragile, about the knowledge that you and your family can survive if these systems fail. Our grandparents didn't need panic buying at the supermarket. They had storage pits in the garden, jars, cellars, knowledge in their heads. Earth storage also teaches you patience and rhythm. You work with the seasons, not against them. You plan in the spring what you will eat in the winter. You trust processes that span months. In our world of instant access, that is a revolutionary way of thinking, and it makes you calmer, safer, more self-confident. You know that you are prepared. There is also a deep connection to the earth itself. When you create an earth pit, you work with the soil, with microorganisms, with natural processes. You learn to pay attention to subtle signs, the moisture in the air, the temperature of the soil, the behavior of the plants. This knowledge is not only practical, it's meditative. It grounds you in the truest sense of the word. And then there is the aspect of resilience. In a world that is becoming increasingly uncertain, every skill for self-sufficiency is a piece of freedom. Every method you master is a tool in your survival kit. Storing cabbage may seem simple, but it is part of a larger system. Earth pits, canning, drying, smoking, fermenting. Together they form a network of security. Think also of the community. If you possess these skills, you can help others. You can teach. Imagine there are several families in your neighborhood who create earth pits. You exchange knowledge, help each other with the harvest, maybe even share supplies. This creates bonds that are stronger than any insurance policy. Self-sufficiency is also community building. What happens when something goes wrong? Let's talk about error analysis and problem solving, because no one does everything perfectly the first time. If you open your pit in winter and find that a lot of cabbage has rotted, ask yourself, was the cabbage harvested too early? Were there damaged heads? Was the drainage poor? Was there too little straw between the heads? Was the cover too dense so that no air could circulate? Was it too thin so that frost got in? Analyze systematically. Take notes. Every mistake is a lesson. A common problem is partial freezing. You open the pit and some heads are frozen rock solid. This happens if the insulation is uneven or if a cold snap came that you didn't react to. Frozen cabbage is not necessarily lost. If it thaws slowly, it can still be usable, but it will be mushier. Use frozen cabbage immediately after thawing. It is no longer suitable for raw salads, but for cooked dishes, it's acceptable. Another problem is drying out. The cabbage is light, the leaves are papery, the heart is small and dry. This means the humidity was too low. For the next season, use more straw, make sure the earth cover is denser, and consider the sand method, which holds moisture better. Mold formation is a sign of too much moisture and too little ventilation. The balance is difficult but doable. Straw should never be wet, only slightly damp. The earth cover should not be so thick that it suffocates, but thick enough that it insulates. Experiment, observe, adjust. Let's also talk about specific tools and materials that make your work easier. A good spade is essential for digging the pit. Choose one with a long handle and a sharp blade. A smaller hand spade is useful for detail work and adjustments. A sturdy wheelbarrow saves an incredible amount of effort when transporting soil, straw, and cabbage. Invest in a good one. It will last decades. For the straw itself, buy it from a trusted farmer. Ask for straw that hasn't been treated with herbicides or pesticides. You want organic, clean material. A bale of straw is enough for a medium pit with about 30 to 40 cabbage heads. Plan accordingly. Better to buy one bale too many than too few. You can use excess straw in the garden as mulch. If you decide on the wire method against rodents, use galvanized chicken wire with a mesh size of no more than 1 centimeter. Smaller mesh is better but more expensive. You'll need enough to line the bottom and sides of the pit. Secure the wire with U-shaped stakes or stones so animals can't lift it. A thermometer with a long probe is a valuable tool for advanced self-sufficiency. You can stick it deep into the pit and measure the internal temperature without opening everything. Some modern models even have wireless features so you can read the temperature from a distance. This isn't strictly necessary, but it gives you security and control. A simple notebook protected from the weather in a plastic bag should be kept near your pit. Record every check, every problem, every observation. Date, outside temperature, what you saw and did. Over the years, this data will become your personal textbook. And here is a critical point that holds everything together. Documentation. Keep a storage log. Record the harvest date, the cabbage variety, the weather during harvest, how you built the pit, every check you performed, every problem that occurred, and the quality upon removal. After a few years, you'll have an invaluable personal manual tailored exactly to your conditions. No one else has your climate, your soil, your varieties. Your knowledge is unique and valuable. Let's also talk about scaling. Maybe you start with 10 cabbage heads in a small pit. That's perfect for learning. But once you've gained confidence and it works, scale up. 50 heads, 100. Multiple pits with different types of vegetables. Cabbage is just the beginning. The same technique works for carrots, beets, celery, rutabagas, parsnips, radishes, any root and cole vegetable. With more pits, you have an underground pantry that feeds you and your family all winter. Think long-term about integration with other preservation methods. The storage pit is fantastic, but it's not alone. Combine it with fermentation. Make sauerkraut from part of your harvest. That gives you a different texture, a different flavor, and expands your options. Sauerkraut has an extremely long shelf life, is full of probiotics, and doesn't require earth storage. It can sit in jars in the cellar. Think also about drying. Cabbage leaves can be dried and used as a soup ingredient or for teas. This is less common, but a tradition in some cultures. Dried cabbage takes up almost no space and has a nearly unlimited shelf life. Experiment with it. Canning is another option. You can can cabbage in jars. This is more labor-intensive than earth storage, but the final product is ready for immediate consumption. No cleaning, no preparation. Open the jar and heat it up. For families with little time for daily cooking, this is valuable. The combination of all these methods gives you maximum security and variety. Imagine you have 50 cabbage heads in the earth pit for fresh consumption. You have 20 jars of sauerkraut in the cellar. You have 10 jars of canned cabbage. You have dried cabbage leaves in a container. This is a system that is almost impossible to break through. Even if one method fails, you have backups. Let's now talk about the economic and ecological side. The costs for an earth pit are minimal. Straw costs a few dollars per bale. You probably already have the tools, or they are a one-time purchase. The seeds for storage cabbage cost a few dollars. Your labor is free. Against these minimal costs stands the value of months of fresh vegetables. 100 cabbage heads bought at the supermarket over 5 months would easily cost $200 to $300. You produce that for maybe $20 in inputs plus your labor. That's a return that no bank account can offer. Ecologically, the earth pit is almost perfect. No electricity, no chemicals, no plastic, no CO2 emissions from transport. The vegetable grows in your garden, is stored in your garden, and is consumed in your kitchen. The cycle is complete and closed. The waste, the outer leaves and old straw, goes back into the compost and becomes nutrients for the next year again. This is permaculture in its purest form. This is how agriculture should be. Compare this with a cabbage head in the supermarket. It was grown using industrial methods, often with synthetic fertilizers and pesticides. It was harvested by machine, wrapped in plastic, transported over hundreds of miles, kept in refrigerated warehouses, transported again, and presented in lighted refrigerated shelves at the supermarket. The ecological footprint is enormous, and in the end, it's not even as fresh or nutrient-rich as your home-stored cabbage. There is also an educational value. If you have children, involve them. Let them help with harvesting, digging the pit, and storing. These are lessons that no textbook can teach. Children learn where food comes from. They learn patience. They learn the value of work. And in winter, when they see that the pit works, they learn that knowledge and planning are more powerful than money. Think long-term as well. An earth pit is cheap and easy, but it's temporary. If you're really serious, you could consider a permanent root cellar, a structure dug into a slope, lined with wood or stone, with shelves and ventilation. This is a larger project, but it's an investment for decades. Root cellars from the 19th century still work today. They are living proof of the power of this technique. A root cellar offers space for much more than cabbage. Potatoes, apples, beets, onions, pumpkins, preserves, everything that needs cool, dark, moist conditions. A well-built root cellar is like a second refrigerator that costs nothing to operate, and it adds value to your property. If you ever wanted to sell, a functioning root cellar is a selling point for anyone who values self-sufficiency. Building a root cellar requires more planning and investment than an earth pit. You might need building permits, depending on your region. You need good construction to prevent a collapse. But the principles are the same: coolness, moisture, drainage, ventilation. Research well, learn from others who have done it, and if possible, visit existing root cellars to see how they work. Consider the economic dimension again from another perspective. A cabbage head in the supermarket costs more in January than in October. If you harvest cheaply or even for free from your garden in the fall and store the cabbage until spring, you save money. Do the math. 100 cabbage heads at $2 each is $200. Stored over a winter, without electricity, without complex technology, only with earth, straw, and knowledge. That's not just self-sufficiency, that's financial wisdom. And then there's nutrition. Cabbage is a powerhouse, rich in vitamin C, vitamin K, fiber, and antioxidants. In winter, when fresh greens are scarce, a stored cabbage is a source of vitamins. Our ancestors knew this. Sauerkraut made from stored cabbage protected sailors from scurvy. It gave them health in the darkest months. You can have that too. Let's also talk about the spiritual dimension. That might sound abstract, but it's real. There is a deep satisfaction in knowing something that most people have forgotten, a secret passed down through generations. When you go into your garden in February, push snow aside, open your pit, and pull out fresh cabbage while your neighbors are standing in line at the supermarket, you feel a quiet power. You are connected to a long line of people who worked this land before you. That is heritage. That is identity. It's also a lesson in humility. Nature is more powerful than you. You can't control everything. An unusually mild winter can cause problems. Things you couldn't foresee. A rodent infestation despite all precautions. A weather extreme. You learn to deal with uncertainty, to adapt, to learn from mistakes. That makes you not only a better self-sufficiency practitioner, but a wiser person. Now let's bring everything together. You've learned to select and harvest the right cabbage. You know how to choose the location and prepare the pit. You understand the art of layering and insulation. You know the principles of monitoring and care. You are familiar with different methods and know how to adapt. You've thought about removal and use, and you understand the deeper meaning of what you're doing. Now you see that it's not about individual techniques. It is a system. Each part depends on the other. Variety selection affects storage. Site selection affects insulation. Layering affects durability. Monitoring prevents disasters. Documentation improves the future. Everything is interwoven, and in the middle stands you, the gardener, the self-sufficiency practitioner, the one who knows. This method has worked for millennia. It worked in Siberia at 30 degrees. It worked in Ireland during the famine. It worked in Germany after the war. And it still works today in your garden, whether you live in the Alps or the North German plain. The principles are universal: coolness, moisture, insulation, drainage, ventilation. Master these and you master earth storage. But here's the truth I must tell you now. Knowledge alone is worthless. You can watch this video, you can nod, you can think that's interesting, but if you don't act, nothing changes. The next fall will come. You will harvest or you won't. You will build a pit or you won't. And in January, you will either pull fresh cabbage out of the ground or stand in line at the supermarket. The decision lies with you today. Now start small. This year, when fall comes, plant 10 heads of storage cabbage. Find a spot in your garden, dig a small pit, try it out. You will make mistakes. That's good. Mistakes are lessons. Next year, you'll do it better, and in a few years, you'll be an expert. People will ask you how you do it, and you will teach. You will pass on the knowledge. That is how cultures survive. Remember also that this is just one building block. Earth storage is powerful, but it's part of a larger picture. Self-sufficiency is a network of skills: cultivation, storage, preservation, energy independence, water supply, craftsmanship. Every skill you add makes the network stronger, and every skill begins with a first step. That first step could be today. This video could be the trigger. I want you to imagine something. It is 3 years in the future. The world has become more uncertain. Supply shortages are normal. Prices have risen. But you walk into your garden, open your storage pit, and pull out cabbage. You go to your cellar and open your jars. You go to your shed where tools and seeds are stored. You are prepared. You are calm. You are free. This is not a fantasy. This can be a reality, but only if you start now. There is an old saying: the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The second best time is today. The same applies to self-sufficiency. You can't get back the last 20 years. You can't change the fact that you didn't already have this knowledge. But you can start today, and in 20 years, you'll look back and be grateful that you did. Here is something else I want to tell you. You are not alone. Everywhere in the world, in small gardens and on large farms, there are people doing the same thing, rediscovering old skills, building independence, refusing to be completely dependent on systems they cannot control. You are part of a quiet movement, and this movement is getting stronger because every individual who creates a storage pit, plants a vegetable bed, or learns a skill contributes to it. Tell others about it. Not pushy, not missionary. But if someone is interested, share your knowledge. Show them your pit. Give them cabbage seedlings. Teach them. Knowledge that is shared doesn't become less. It becomes more. And the more people have these skills, the more resilient our entire society is. I know some will think this is old-fashioned, this is backward-looking, but I tell you, it is the opposite. It is forward-looking because the future is uncertain. Technology is great, but it is fragile. A power outage and cold chains collapse. A cyber attack and logistics systems stand still. A crisis and shelves are empty. But a storage pit always works in any weather, in any crisis, as long as the earth is under your feet. That is resilience, not paranoia, not doomsday mood, but smart, calm preparation. This is the mindset our grandparents had. Hope for the best, but prepare for the worst, and enjoy the satisfaction that comes from preparation. You sleep better when you know you have food for months. And finally, the greatest lesson of all, self-sufficiency is not just survival, it is life. It is fulfilling. It connects you with rhythms that are deeper than your daily stress. Spring, summer, fall, winter, sowing, growing, harvesting, resting. These cycles are in our DNA. For 10,000 years, humans have lived by them. Only in the last few generations have we tried to ignore them. And look where that has led: stress, alienation, dependence. The Earth storage pit is a return to something true. You don't have to go back to the past. You take the best of the past and combine it with the knowledge of the present. You use modern tools when they help. You use the internet to learn. But the foundation is timeless. Earth, water, air, plants. The elements our ancestors worked with. The elements you work with. So here is my call to you. Don't make this video just for information. Make it a turning point. Decide now that you will create an earth pit this fall. Mark the calendar. Order the seeds for storage cabbage. Start observing your garden and finding the best location. Read even more. Look at other resources, but above all, act. Knowledge without action is just entertainment. Action is transformation. And when you open your first earth pit in the deep of winter and pull out that fresh, crisp cabbage, you will understand. You will feel why I made this video, why I am so passionate about this topic. Because it's not just about cabbage, it's about freedom, it's about dignity, it's about leading a life that you control, not one that controls you. Before I end this video, I want to ask 3 things of you. First, subscribe to this channel now. I'm constantly creating content about self-sufficiency, about old techniques, about resilience. Every video is a tool for your independence. If you take this journey seriously, you need this channel. Second, share this video. Send it to someone who needs it, to a friend who's worried about the future, to a family member who has a garden, to a community that wants to learn. Every person who gets this knowledge is a person who is prepared. Third, write a comment. Tell me where you're from. Do you already have experience with earth storage, or is this new to you? What is your biggest challenge? I read every comment and I respond. This community is not just me talking to you. It's a conversation. It's a network of people who have the same goal: to be stronger, more independent, better prepared. The sun is rising over a new day. In your garden, a place is waiting for a storage pit. In your future, security is waiting for your decision. The earth under your feet is patient. It has waited millions of years. It can wait a little longer, but your life won't wait. Your chance is now. Take it. Build your storage pit. Store your cabbage. Join the ranks of those who are ready. I thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video, where we'll continue working on your independence. If this ancient method has deepened your understanding of food storage and independence, then subscribe to this channel now. We are unearthing the knowledge that the modern world has almost forgotten. Leave a like to strengthen this movement. Your next step toward freedom begins here. The next treasure of self-sufficiency will be revealed soon.